The Schizoid Man. The Enterprise responds to a request for medical assistance from Dr. Ira Graves, considered by many to be the greatest living mind in the universe.
How many times in Star Trek do they find the greatest living mind in the universe? It seems like it happens all the time. And the greatest living mind always happens to be human.
Dr. Graves is working on molecular cybernetics. There's a big opening joke on Data trying out a new image. It doesn't relate to the episode at all. It seems like a joke a writer wanted to stick in somewhere, but couldn't really figure out how, so they just did it.
I would bet money that's exactly what happened.
It's a very jarring interjection, especially because the next time we see Data, he doesn't have a beard at all. On the way, the Enterprise runs into another distress signal from a ship, so they have to decide who's going to attend to who.
Captain, I show the Constantinople in that general vicinity.
And they say that they have an outer hull breach. Riker immediately comes to the conclusion that it must have been an internal explosion.
Outer hull breach. She must have had an internal explosion.
Why would an outer hull breach make you think it was an internal explosion?
They meet Dr. Graves, played by William Morgan Shepard,
who I know as the narrator of the early Medal of Honor games.
Lieutenant Powell, I'm Colonel Hargrove from the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS.
Dr. Graves knew Dr. Soong, which gives him a connection to Data.
But after just mentioning it at the beginning, Data doesn't seem to ask him any questions about it, and it never comes up again.
Graves also has Darnay's disease, which means he's going to die.
Good.
Graves spends his last moments soliloquizing to Data.
The only other person on the planet with Dr. Graves is his assistant, Kareen, who is way younger than him and attractive.
Troy is talking to Kareen about Dr. Graves, and she says,
"He's attracted to you in many ways."
Attracted?
Which again is a weird thing to say out loud in front of everybody. You're a terrible counselor.
The Enterprise deals with the Constantinople issue completely off-screen, and they just come right back. What was that even in the episode for? Graves talks to Data about wanting to upload his mind into a computer, and then he starts acting weird with Data, and then he dies.
While he's telling Data this, there's an ominous zoom in this music. Graves might as well have been cackling like Snidely Whiplash.
Data starts acting weird, and as the audience, we're supposed to wonder exactly what's going on. But it is extremely clear, and we're only a third of the way through the episode, that Graves has transferred his mind into Data's body. And we've seen this kind of situation, again, multiple times already in this show.
I hate how stupid they act when the only reason is to serve an overly simple idea. It insults them as actors as well as us as a viewing audience. Troy even senses emotions from Data.
Intense, burning jealousy. A human emotion, and it was coming from Data.
Data not only acts more human, but often very inappropriately and even belligerently. If Graves doesn't want people to know that he's in Data's body, why is he being so obvious about it?
At one point, Picard asks,
"Is it possible to speculate about what's happening to him?"
He is just a machine. Do you not know how to perform a diagnostic on a computer?
I'm honestly not that surprised. And it's true that nobody understands Data.
The whole episode accentuates how little they actually know about Data, which is not a good thing, because in case they didn't notice, Data is third in command of a ship of over 1,000 people that could easily turn into a weapon of mass destruction. We are 3/4 through the episode before Picard even alludes to suspecting something relating to Graves. But then Picard sounds all smug at figuring it out.
The whole reason that Graves has transferred his mind into Data is because he didn't want to die, and because he's interested in Kareen but thought he was too old for her.
And Graves says he'll make an android body for Kareen too, which is kind of a weird Frankensteinian twist that's not really necessary. Picard quotes Shakespeare.
"So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this. And this gives life to thee."
That quote seems to be the entire basis of this episode, which is fine. There are entire plays and operas and films and art based on quotes or passages, but in this case,
they thought the concept in itself was enough to carry the entire episode and didn't try to put any depth to it at all.
It's revealed that Geordi has been injured by Graves, and Picard uses very basic psychology to thwart Graves. There is nothing keeping Graves on the Enterprise. He could easily overpower the crew and use his technical know-how to get off the ship and become a god somewhere else. It seems like something that Graves would actually do.
I get why they thought some of these situations would be interesting, but they have to make sense first.
Then Graves hurts Picard in a fit of rage and decides to self-terminate based on some sense of morality that was never part of Graves' character and never seemed to be for his entire life.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Graves vacates Data, and when they find him in his room, Picard says,
Expressions of I've heard more than enough. You're you again.
"That's it? No follow-up? No checking to see if there's any damage or residual effects?" Graves has taken his intellect and, instead of putting it into Data, has put it into the main computer, which is potentially way more dangerous. And they just brushed that off by saying,
There is knowledge, but no consciousness. The human equation has been lost.
why this time, but not the other time? Graves even said himself he didn't know how the experiment was going to turn out.
See, I had checked out of this episode a long time before that, so I didn't even care.
And then they just play the whole thing off as a joke, not, Data, you almost killed 3 people and became and potentially still are a huge threat to this entire ship. And again, nobody says, Captain, maybe we should figure out how the hell this robot who commands 99% of the people on the ship works. But they never did anything about it the other times, so why bother this time? Let's just wait for it to happen again. The Schizoid Man. Overall,
Very dumb, drawn-out episode. Extremely predictable almost from the very beginning. Everything's just frustrating the entire way through. I'm going to give it a D+.
F. The show really seems to have a hard time fleshing out potentially good ideas, and instead brings them down to the lowest common denominator and tries to pass off simplicity as complexity and stupidity as intelligence. It's shallow, it's insulting, and it's just plain lazy.
It's a bad episode, but it's not the worst episode that we've seen.
They're too far to play it off as it's just the first season.
That's true. You know what? Yeah, there's no excuse for episodes that bad, but I'm still going to stick with a D+.